Alright, the next thing I was going to show y'all is how to increase your case neck tension and not wear your brass out as much. When you take a 4-die set like this Lee, of course you size your bullet and deprime it, and then you have what they call the powder through the expander die, which this is the die that bells your bullet, and your expander's in there and your top on it. And of course, when you push the bullet up in there, it slides this little piece in here, the sizer ring, up and activates your powder dump on the Lee progressive presses. But this is the portion that slides into the case and will size the case, expand the case back out, and then up at the very top you can see that it will add your flare the farther up you go. Well, what I've done to this one is I've turned it down to where I can take a fired case, or excuse me, a sized case, and it will not expand the case back out. That way I have maximum case neck tension. And I had a case laying right here. Here's a 45 case, and normally these expander dies won't even start in the case because they have to swell it back out. But since I've already turned this one down, you can see that it slides all the way in the case, all the way up to the top where it starts the flare at. And what you end up with is when you end up with a case that's ready to load, like this 44, you can see that I've sized it, and you can see the size ring, you can see the definite swell down here at the bottom where the sizer stopped. And if you look up the side of the case, there's no swell because that expander die has not swollen the case back up. The only thing I've done is added a slight flare at the top, just to aid in starting my bullets. That way I have maximum case neck tension, and I'm not overworking the brass. Plus I don't have to put as much of a crimp on it to hold, because I've got maximum case neck tension, so I'm not fighting bullet pull with crimp, which just ends up screwing with your case life and cracking your case mouse and everything over a couple loads. Anyway, at this rate, this piece of brass, I've shot this thing, I've lost count. I've probably loaded it 15 or 20 times so far. And what I'll normally do is I'll throw it away when it beats the case head off where I can't read what it is anymore. So, I mean, that's how long my loads last. And, I'm normally shooting 23 grains of H110 with a 310 grain Lee bullet with this load. And, of course, here's some more, the same thing. There is no flare up the case like there normally is with your dies. Once you've sized them and you come back and flare them, you'll have a sized portion here, but you'll see a swell here where the bullet goes in, and where the sizer die is actually swollen it before it flares it. But anyway, and I'll get one of my loaded rounds to give you an example. These 44s right here, as you can see, if I can get the light to do right, you can see a definite bulge in the case where the bullet is inside of the case. You can see this line right about where my thumb is if I can get the light to cooperate. But kind of like the snake that swallowed the ball, you can see the ridges, you can see the lube grooves and everything, because I've got maximum case neck tension from modifying my die. But anyway, I've already done this one, but I'll do a little bit more just to show. What I do is simply take this little flare piece out of the powder through expander die. Go over here to my little junky drill press here, and a cleaning rod that's wrapped in steel wool just to make it the right size. I'll slide that up on there and use the drill press to turn it. And of course it runs rough, but when you lay the file against it, it'll hold just like my fingers hold against it. But anyway, you'll take a file and you'll simply lay it against the die, and you'll turn it down until it'll slide in your sized case without expanding the case out. But let me lay this bone out. What I'm doing is I'm wrapping my file with some 2000 grit sandpaper, that I've already used before on other things, but just to illustrate how it works, and that way I don't turn the die down anymore. I'm just simply going to polish a little bit by doing this, but I'll just take my file and lay against it and hold it, run it up and down from the bottom all the way up to the top of that portion of it. And like I say, I'll just continue to do that until I turn it down enough that I can take one of my sized and deprimed cases, and it will slide into the case up to about that point right there, and then the rest of it is going to flare the neck, and that little bit right there is what's going to give me that little bit of flare that you can see sticking out of the case, and that way the case isn't expanded all the way down here, causing you to have, you know, poor case neck tension and letting the bullet slide forward, and then you're trying to control bullet pull with crimp, which doesn't do real good in my estimation. Not as good as what I've done here. And by doing this, I can shoot mixed brass and end up with the same group and everything, because, you know, brass variation is no longer an issue because I've got good case neck tension, and my bullets are about 1/1000 larger than my throat, and I've got them seated along where they're sitting against the throat. So you know, as soon as the bullet moves, it has to be sized by the throat, and the pressure to size that bullet down to fit through the throat has more bearing than different brands and different case neck thicknesses and everything else. It's not an equation anymore. So I can shoot a 5 shots across the chronograph with 10 feet per second variation for the 5 shots using 5 different pieces of brass, or 5 different makes of brass.